Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. And if other folks join us, that's great. This will also be recorded, so if you miss anything, no worries at all. My name is Kate Featherston, and I am a Senior Assistant Director of Admissions here at Dartmouth, and I'm also the Questbridge Liaison, and I am super excited to welcome you to not the last, but the second to last webinar series this summer. We have one more coming up in a couple weeks. I'll definitely put the link in the chat for you to sign up for that later on. But before we get started with tonight's session, the Admissions and Financial Aid Info session, I want to have my panelists introduce themselves. So Brooke, do you want to go first, and then Manuel?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for being here. My name is Brooke Broderick, and I work in the Financial Aid Office. I am an Assistant Director here at Dartmouth. And I do work pretty closely with the Questbridge program. So I'm very happy to be here tonight to help you understand the processes and the terms and just kind of help smooth out the financial aid process for you guys as you're navigating this part of your life applying for college.
Thanks, Brooke. Manuel, do you want to go next?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Manuel. I'm a 22, meaning I'm an upcoming senior at Dartmouth. I study neuroscience and Spanish. And I am not a Questbridge student, unfortunately. I wish I had known about the Questbridge program my senior year of high school, but I am a low-income student and definitely do receive financial aid. So I'm happy to talk a bit more about sort of the nuances that come with receiving aid and all of that, because I know as upcoming seniors or wherever you all might be at, it's kind of like a scary process, a lot of numbers, big numbers. So hopefully this session helps you all.
Yeah, exactly. I think you nailed it right on the head. This is a really scary process, I think, for a lot of folks. This may be the first time that anyone in your family has gone through financial aid and application. So this is really an opportunity for us to kind of give you the one-on-one, what it's like to apply to Dartmouth and schools like Dartmouth, but also how to apply for financial aid and what sort of aid is available. We'll go into a basic overview of the admissions process at Dartmouth, as well as the Questbridge process at Dartmouth specifically. And then Brooke will take over and do a financial aid summary, and we'll finish up with a Q&A with Manuel. We'll also ask Manuel to jump in and give his advice as a current student and someone who was in your shoes not too long ago throughout the presentation. But as I mentioned before, this is also going to be recorded at a later date, available at a later date. So if you don't want to take notes or you want to show this to your family or friends later on, please feel free to do so. So before we get started with the official kind of presentation, I want to know in the chat, when you think of the admissions process, what feelings come to mind? And while you're thinking of that and putting those answers in the chat, Manuel, I'm curious, when you were applying to colleges, what was going through your head at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I think I was a bit too, focused on the numbers, and I thought that like they were just gonna see my grades and my SAT score, and so I think I really, I think I beat myself up leading up to senior year because like I was a good student, but I wasn't like all A whatever 4.0 student. And so I think that got me a bit worried about the process. But of course, on the other side, I know that that's very much not the case anymore.
Yeah, it sounds like some folks in the chat feel pretty similarly to you. So that it's a really important process, but they may be a little overwhelmed or worried. Someone brings up the point that this is a holistic process. Yes, for places like Dartmouth, we're looking at a lot of different facets. So not just those data points that Manuel was mentioning, but lots of other things as well. So nervous and stress, well, hopefully this session will give you some alleviation of that stress a little bit. Our hope through these sessions throughout the summer is really just to kind of open this process to you and make sure that you feel comfortable going into it. So I'm going to do a quick outline of the different ways that you can apply to Dartmouth. You know about the Questbridge College Match because you are watching this session, but if you don't, Questbridge is an application for high achieving students from lower income backgrounds. Typically students who match to a college have incomes or family with incomes under $65,000 a year for a family of 4, but that's not a strict cutoff. So definitely check with individual institutions, check with Questbridge about your specific financial situation. That application is due the 28th of next month, so coming up pretty soon, but you still have plenty of time to get that application in. We also can accept the common application, which is how the majority of folks apply to Dartmouth. And we ask that you apply via one or the other. So Questbridge or the Common App, not both. You don't need to fill out both applications. So for the Common App, we have early decision, which is a binding agreement, which means that if you get into Dartmouth, you are compelled to attend. You signed a document that said that you're going to attend Dartmouth. The regular decision is the non-binding agreement. So that's your more typical college application. That's where you can get into lots of different schools, compare financial aid packages, and decide where you want to go. Really, the difference between the two is whether it's binding and what time of year the application is. So for the early decision, that is due November 1st, and the common application regular decision is due the 3rd of January for us. So you do have the option as a Questbridge finalist, and we'll talk a little bit more about what finalists are versus non-finalists in a bit, but if you are a Questbridge finalist, but don't end up matching to Dartmouth or a different institution, that's perfectly fine. You can definitely still apply to these institutions. You can do what we call rollover, which is where you can take your Questbridge application and use it to apply via early or regular decision. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means later on. All of these options are available to students regardless of your citizenship. However, Dartmouth will only match through the Questbridge match process with domestic students or undocumented students, so not international students. However, if you are an international student, you can still apply through the Common App, and we will match with undocumented students or permanent residents. You should only submit one application to Dartmouth, either the Questbridge or the Common App. Can't underline that enough. So this is a lot of information. Questbridge is a very complicated process, which I'm sure if you've kind of gotten into the documentation on their website or have been listening to different talks like this at different colleges, you know this. So Questbridge is, there's lots of dates, lots of deadlines, but this map over here on the left side of your screen is kind of a good way to think about it. I'm a very visual person. I know other folks are too, but this is a way to sort of think through the process this fall. So right now the application is open and it's due September 28th. So that is when you'll be able to submit the first part of your application, but that's not when you're completely done with the Questbridge app. You have then until October 14th to rank up to 12 partner colleges. There are 45 partner colleges around the country that you can choose from. These are institutions like Dartmouth that guarantee to meet full need and are really good financial options, as well as just really fantastic institutions. By October 19th, you'll be notified if you are a finalist or not. So if you are a finalist, that means that you can continue on in the match. If you're not a finalist, that means that you cannot continue on in the match. And at Dartmouth, you must use your Common App to apply. You can't use the Questbridge application if you are a non-finalist. So when you rank those 12 partner colleges, really make sure that you're only ranking schools that you are really excited about, because it is a binding agreement for most of the schools, which you'll list. There are, I think, a handful of schools, I haven't checked recently, it used to be 3 or 4 where it wasn't binding, which means that if you get matched, you can still decide to go other places. But for the vast majority of schools, it is binding, which means that you want to put schools on that list that you would be really, really excited to attend. So for many students, that doesn't mean you're putting 12 schools on there. Some students only put a couple. Some students put 12. It totally depends on your specific circumstances and how many schools you would be really excited to attend. Between October 19th, when you're notified of your finalist status, and November 1st, you have some time to complete additional documentation that you will need for your application. So those include things like your financial aid documents, getting those over to our offices, as well as completing writing supplements for some of your schools. So Dartmouth is a school that requires a writing supplement. So you'll have a couple weeks in there to work on that. If you're curious and kind of want to get started on that early, those prompts are already on our website, so you don't need to wait until October 19th to get started on those. You can go ahead and do those already. But November 1st is when those final match requirements are due to both the financial aid office as well as the admissions offices. By December 1st, 1 month later, it's match day, which is when finalists are notified if they've matched at an institution. If you match, great. You've been admitted early with a full scholarship. You don't need to worry about college anymore. You are set. If you don't match, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not qualified for these institutions. The vast majority of students who apply to the match program do not end up matching. And we accept more students that are Questbridge affiliated outside the match than we do inside the match, because it's just a really competitive process. So not matching does not mean that you're not competitive, that you won't get into these schools. It really just means that it's a really competitive process. And you still have options. You can apply early decision, you can apply regular decision, and you have some time to figure that out. If you want to apply early decision to Dartmouth, you have until December 6th to decide that. Otherwise, you can choose to apply via regular decision. We'll automatically roll your application over into regular and just add us to your regular decision checklist by December 12th. That's the checklist that goes over to Questbridge. And that will just let us know that you're still interested in Dartmouth, still interested in regular decision. And by the spring, if you were not matched, you'll get those acceptances coming in and be able to compare financial aid packages and all of that good stuff. But I think the bottom line here is the match is a very competitive process. If you don't get matched, it's still fine. You're still going to get great financial aid at institutions like Dartmouth, and Brooke will talk a little bit more about what that looks like, both inside and outside the match a little later. So we have application requirements that are required regardless of whether you apply via the Questbridge app or the Common App. So the application itself, we also require a writing supplement. As I mentioned before, those supplement questions are on our website. If you just Google writing supplement Dartmouth, it should be one of the first links that come up. We also require 2 teacher recommendations, and you can get those from folks that know you well, who have taught you in classes recently, preferably. We also are test optional this year, which means that if you have testing, great, send it to us. If you don't worry about it. It's truly not something that we consider in our process. We were test optional last year as well. So we have a lot of experience with handling test optional applications. We review your applications holistically, which means that if you don't have test scores, we're just going to look at everything else. If you do have test scores, we're going to look at that in addition to everything else. There's no one part of your application that's more important or more impactful to your admission than another. So if you don't have test scores, it's not going to disadvantage you in our process in any way. And you can decide if you haven't taken testing and don't want to, that's totally fine. But if you've taken testing and don't like your scores or don't feel that they're representative of who you are as a student, that is completely fine as well. So please just make whatever decision is best for you, and know that it won't disadvantage you in our process regardless of what you decide. We also have a peer recommendation, which is unique to Dartmouth. There are a couple schools that offer it. Dartmouth is, I think, one of the only Questbridge schools that does. This is completely optional, but it's like a teacher recommendation, but it's from a peer, so from a friend. These are really fun for us to read and really give us an insight into your personality outside of class. But again, it's completely optional, not required. And I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of pointers to make your application stronger. We do have a webinar coming up later this month that's going to go deeper into what makes good writing and what we're looking for as college admissions officers. But really, there's 4 big things that we're looking for with your essays. We should be able to glean these really important characteristics. The first would be your values, so clear values. What is important to you, your story, your goals. We should really know who you are after reading your essays. Openness, so great essays really allow us to step into your shoes. And this is really the first time and the only time that many admissions officers will be able to meet you. And really, we don't know who you are outside of your application. So as open as you can be, as open as you feel comfortable being, please be that in this process. It's really helpful for us to kind of know who you are and really understand where you're coming from. They should answer this so what. Great essays include analysis as well as storytelling. So let us know why something you're telling us about is so important to you. Also craft, show, don't tell. You hear that a lot with college writing, but have multiple people read your essay and give you their perspective. We really want you to go into this process and really not only have an essay for the college applications that you're submitting, but also learn a little bit more about yourself and maybe where you're going in your future. There are lots of free essay resources online. One of my favorites is called College Essay Guy. I can put the name in the chat later, but that is a resource that kind of talks you through what colleges are looking for. I think the person who wrote it is a former college admissions officer, but those are all completely free resources for you to use. Also, make your supplements school specific. So many of your schools will ask you supplemental questions. A lot of those kind of boil down to, why do you want to go to this specific school? They may ask you some other additional questions that may be getting at your intellectual curiosity or what you like to do for fun, things like that. But there's usually always going to be a question: why do you want to come to Dartmouth? Why do you want to come to X school? And really take time to show that you've done your research, you really understand the institution, and you're looking forward to making your mark on campus. So be really specific. Make sure that you can't kind of substitute another name for the school that you're writing about. Make sure it's really specific to that place. And finally, recommendations really matter. Your voice is so important throughout your application, but your recommendations give us another peek into who you are, not only in the classroom, but out. Make sure you're choosing folks from classes, not necessarily those that you've gotten an A in, but those that really understand who you are as a student. Maybe that they've seen you struggle a little bit and really overcome some difficulties in a difficult source material. Maybe a teacher that has seen you outside of class, maybe they're your club leader or your neighbor, something like that. There are lots of great folks in your community, in your network, that you just need to tap into for this process. And with that, before we transition over to the financial aid portion, I'm hoping folks can let us know in the chat how they plan to pay for college.
Okay, there are 2 questions that we have right now. Do you want to look at those right now, or do you want to wait till the end?
Yeah, we can look at them right now. I'm sorry, I was talking and wasn't paying attention.
So I'll go ahead and I'll read them. So one person asks, approximately how many students from the class of 25 were admitted without test scores? Is that data that we have and can share?
We don't have that data. So we haven't published that data. But sort of anecdotally, it was a good portion of students didn't submit test scores this past year, but no, we're not reporting that data.
Thank you. All right. And then also, for the app to roll over, do you need to be named as a finalist?
Great question. There's so many different terms here. Yes, in order to roll over your Questbridge application. So what that means is use your Questbridge application in another round. So either early decision or regular decision. And for Dartmouth, yes, you would need to be a finalist. That's not the case for every partner college. So definitely check on our individual Questbridge sites. So if you go on Questbridge, you can see different profiles for all of the partner colleges, and they'll have more information about whether you can do that as a non-finalist. Great. And let us know in the chat how you plan to pay for college. I'm curious, Manuel, we're gonna tap you again. When you were thinking of paying for college, maybe what was something that you were thinking about a lot? I know I was thinking a lot about loans and not wanting to take them. I'm curious what your thoughts were on that, Manuel, when you were applying.
Yeah, my mind was pretty much set on yeah, I'm gonna have to take out $1 million in loans, and I didn't know about these super big scholarship applications, so I didn't really have that in my radar. And so yeah, basically thinking loans. I mean, my parents were aren't able to help me to the extent that Dartmouth asks you to pay. So I thought it was just going to be loans.
Yeah. And some folks in the chat talking about scholarships, Pell Grants. Great. Local scholarships, that's great.
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of money out there that can be tapped into. Similar to Kate talking about the network of folks for recommendations. There's an incredible amount of scholarship money in your local communities that you just need to ask. You just need to ask. A lot of times your guidance counselors may know of local opportunities, or if you have local Elks clubs or Lions clubs or things like that, definitely be looking in your communities. All right, great. Well, let's move into the financial aid portion of this. So, we just mentioned thinking about some local scholarships, which are considered outside scholarships here. But really what our goal is to be meeting your full need using need-based financial aid from Dartmouth. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, how your outside scholarships will play into that. So first, let's talk about the cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance is what the college is going to cost you in the for an academic year. And when I say you, that's the cost. So it's the total cost, but what your net cost is going to be different than that because of need-based financial aid. So the total cost is including tuition, fees, room, board. So those are billable items. And then also non-billable items like books, transportation, depending on where you live, miscellaneous, which includes things like toiletries, laundry detergent, and kind of the random expenses that you may incur throughout the year. So the cost of attendance includes the billable items that are actually billed by the college, and also non-billable items that we've estimated, because even though you're not paying them to Dartmouth, they're a real expense to families throughout the year. Now, the net price is what you should be using to compare college costs. And so that is the total cost of attendance minus any scholarship money you receive. Only scholarship money, free money. So the cost minus your scholarship is the amount that your family is going to be contributing in some way to your education over the year. And the reason the net price is the important piece to compare colleges with is because if different schools cost a different amount, but they're offering you the same amount of scholarship, your net cost is going to be different. And that's really the bottom line. And so when we're looking at applying for financial aid, whether or not you're applying through Questbridge or through regular decision or early decision, we require you to complete the FAFSA. So that is the free application for federal student aid. And someone mentioned Pell Grants in the chat, and that is the application that will tell us whether or not you have Pell Grant eligibility, federal work study eligibility, or even federal loan eligibility. And not those three items, specifically the work study and the Pell Grant, and we'll talk a little bit more about loans, are used to help, Dartmouth uses to help meet your needs. So the Pell Grant is a grant that does not need to be repaid, and it comes from the federal government. And the federal work study is the ability to work on, it's the ability and expectation that you're working while you're here to contribute towards your costs. And where we can go down a lot of different wormholes here, because even if you don't have federal work study eligibility, you can still work at Dartmouth. So even if you don't have that eligibility for whatever reason, you are still able to work here and have a job to help contribute towards your costs. So that's the federal side of things. So for institutional need-based financial aid, which is what Dartmouth is using to really fill in your need, you will complete the CSS profile. So that is an application through the College Board, and it is a little bit more in depth than the FAFSA. And so we require it because it does kind of pick into some things that the FAFSA does not, and it helps us award the incredible amount of scholarship that we do each year. Along with the CSS profile, we'll expect that you're submitting your family's tax documents from the applicable tax year. So we're looking at 2 years prior. And so you'll submit those all through IDoc, which is through the College Board, and it's a secure upload for those documents to come through to us. And then as I've touched on a little bit, or a lot of it really, because that's the crux of the financial aid here, is we're need-based. We're meeting 100% of your demonstrated financial need. And for US students and permanent residents and undocumented students, the ability to pay is not part of your application for admission. It's separate. We are need blind in that case. And then coming down here towards talk about the scholarships more. Merit scholarship, you may receive them from outside sources, and you can use them to help reduce your costs. But Dartmouth does not offer merit scholarships. So the goal is to level the playing field. We want all students to be able to come to Dartmouth regardless of their financial circumstances. So we only offer need-based financial aid. Outside scholarships, which may be merit-based, which is fine. Outside scholarships can be used to reduce your costs in addition to the need-based Dartmouth scholarship. So for example, students who receive financial aid do have a work study expectation, whether it's federal work study or not federal work study. And you can use your outside scholarship to replace that expectation. All students can do that. And kind of the nice thing about that is you can double dip. You can use your outside scholarship to replace the work expectation, but you can still work on campus. So there's some good opportunity there to have some extra funding to go towards your education. And so the grants and scholarships, need-based strictly from the college. And loans this is a piece where we'll touch upon them. If you are matched through Questbridge, there's no expectation that you're borrowing a loan. You'll receive your financial aid package and there will not be a loan listed. That does not say that you cannot borrow it if needed, but we do not expect that you'll be borrowing a loan. And then work study, we've touched upon that a little bit. So work study again is your expectation and ability to work here on campus or even in the local community if you wish, to earn some money to help cover things such as books, your plane ticket, your laundry detergent, that sort of thing. So before I move on to the next slide, I do see a few questions coming in. So I'm just going to take a minute to just touch on those quick. So what if your family doesn't want to or can't pay? So depending on your individual circumstances, we do require information for both parents to be submitted in order to determine your financial need. There are individual circumstances where this may be treated a little bit differently. So I would encourage you to talk to our office directly and privately about your particular situation. And if you're, we're talking, so here in the Questbridge realm, if you are matched via the Questbridge program, we don't expect that your parents are actually contributing, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So you may find that so you say your parents can't pay, and we're understanding that through the financial aid application process. And then if you're matched via Questbridge, you'd actually have a 0 parent contribution expectation. Another question is there a deadline to submit the CSS profile? So yes, we'll talk about deadlines in a bit, but the most important thing I can tell you is that we are flexible. So we do have a little bit of flexibility. So if you have any issues submitting it by the deadline, please let us know directly. In regards to the CSS profile, how is the waiver handled for non-custodial parent who has never contributed? Okay, that's a very good question, and we may have a lot of them. And so I'm sure you're not the only one with this question. So the way that is handled is we do require you to complete and submit a waiver request, and it's a form available through the College Board. It's a standard form that many colleges use, where you'll give us just some more information about the circumstances. All requests are reviewed by the director, and then we kind of take it step by step. So, either we are able to waive the parent from the waiver itself, or maybe we have to reach out to that parent directly, or whatever, step by step. That's something that's very individual to each circumstance that we're happy to work with you with. All right. So regardless of whether or not you are applying through Questbridge, through regular decision, through early decision, Dartmouth meets 100% of your demonstrated need. And that's very important to understand. So the Questbridge program is a wonderful program. You're going to have wonderful benefits. You'll have a network. But if you don't match through Questbridge, as Kate was saying earlier about the admissions process, don't fret, because we are still meeting 100% of your demonstrated need, regardless of how you're admitted, whether it's through Questbridge, whether it's early decision or regular decision. And another common question is there a difference in financial aid, when you apply early decision versus regular decision? And the answer to that is no. You'll receive the same financial aid package, whether or not you're admitted early decision or regular decision or Questbridge. So Dartmouth has a tuition guarantee, and we recently increased it from $100,000 to $125,000. So if your family makes under $125,000 and possess typical assets, we guarantee that you are going to receive scholarship to at least cover the cost of tuition. And in many cases, low-income students are receiving scholarship that actually far exceeds tuition. It's covering their room and board as well. It's covering their room and board and allowing them to have a refund for books. So there's so much, and I can't stress enough. There's so much fear when you look at the cost of college. But what we're doing here is trying to make it possible. So that's the biggest takeaway here. And with Questbridge, you'd have a 0 parent contribution. We wouldn't expect that your family is contributing. You can go ahead and move on, Kate. Thank you. So here are the deadlines. So this is the information that is the important stuff here. So deadlines for the financial aid application. So for Questbridge, we need all your documents in by November 1. Early decision is the same. And then regular decision is February 1st. And so we're going to be looking at your FAFSA, your CSS profile, and it will be the 2020 tax returns is going to be the year that we're looking for the 22-23 school year. If you are an undocumented student, I do want to say you don't need to complete the FAFSA, and international students don't complete the FAFSA either. So we would just be looking for the CSS profile and IDOC, or the tax documents in those circumstances. I'm just going to pop back into the questions real quick again. So the 125 is total income. So we're looking at taxable income, and we're also looking at untaxed income. So, but we are considering. So let me give you an example of untaxed income. So if you receive child support from a parent that we're not counting as part of the application process, that would be considered untaxed income. With students under a certain income receive the book grant and a full ride along, no. So the way that the financial aid is meeting your need is not a full ride. So your bill will be fully covered. Most likely your bill is going to be fully covered. You'll find that you owe very little or nothing to Dartmouth. But there is a work study expectation, and the student does have a student contribution expectation. So we cannot call it a full ride because we do have those pieces in there that are used to go towards things like books, transportation, miscellaneous, those kind of things. So the parent contribution is really what's variable based off of income. And for the Questbridge matches, that's going to be 0. And so now we're going to take a couple minutes to do an exercise with the My Intuition calculator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in some general information just as an example. And what it's going to do is it's going to show us what a breakdown of a financial aid award may look like. And so I'm going to go ahead and try to pull this over. Oh, we have another question. Independent contractors would use the full amount earned or after expenses. So it depends on how you're filing. If you're filing, and this is going to get way into the weeds, if you're filing a Schedule C, we would be looking at the line 31, if that means anything to you. So I would recommend you contact our office directly, and we're happy to discuss your specific circumstances with you. And you can reach us by phone or email. We're more than happy to communicate either way, especially with prospective families. We want to make sure all of your questions are answered and you know what to expect going into this. And we're available. We're here, and just to plug our hours, we're here 9 to 4. We are closed for the lunch hour, 12 to 1 every day. And this is Eastern time, Monday through Friday. Give us a call. We're more than happy to talk. All right, so let me share my intuition. So this calculator, can you guys see this? Kate and Manuel?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, excellent. So the My Intuition calculator is intended to give folks an idea of what they can expect, and it is pulling data from our current students, and it's giving a range, and it's very important to understand that it's giving a range. And the information that we're inputting is a few simple pieces to really give you that starting point of a relative idea, and it's going to spit out an estimate. And so this works really only with the US circumstances. It is limited because we can't encompass all of the different countries and what goes into the financial aid calculation with that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start, and this is available on our website. You can even just in a Google search bar type in Dartmouth My Intuition calculator. And just for the purpose of this exercise here, we're going to keep it simple. So I'm going to say we're a US citizen. I live with both biological or adopted parents. And this is a good point to make. Regardless of marital status, if your parents live together, we're going to be considering them in the same household. And FAFSA will as well. So if your parents are separated or divorced, or they were never married, but they live together, both parents will go on the application. If your parents live separately, then you would be completing the FAFSA with only your custodial parent, but the CSS profile would be completed by your custodial parent and also the non-custodial parent in a separate application. All right, so this is just giving us some quick information. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just type in gross earnings before taxes. Let's say, let's keep this in there. Let's say they do own their home. Yeah, we'll keep that in there. We'll keep that in there. So this is cash, checking, savings. Do your parents have any retirement or pension plans? And so we do not include retirement accounts as part of our calculation. The reason our calculator asks for it is to make sure that we're not double counting it. If you've entered the same exact amount for the retirement account as you have for your investments, we're going to question it and say, did you misreport this? And then also just having that question in there sends to the person who's completing it, oh, these are two separate things, so that it's properly reported. And so I'll go ahead and say no there. Do your parents have any investments? We'll go ahead and say no. Do you have any siblings in your household that will also be enrolled in an undergraduate program? Let's go ahead and say yes. So many of us have siblings that will be in college. Ooh, not 10. How many siblings will be enrolled in the household? Let's go ahead and say we have a sibling. And so this should spit us out a calculation here. So again, this is a wide range of what you're seeing. So the student work study, we may expect you to work to earn about $2,500 during the school year to contribute towards your educational expenses. We're going to expect a common, and this is combined. When we're calculating, we break it up into the student and parent, which is what you'll see on your award letter. The combined student and parent contribution, $5,100, and this is in the middle range. And when we compare that to our total cost of attendance, which is for this purpose, $79,500. what we do is we're taking out we use the total 79500 and we subtract out how much we expect your family is contributing, which is the 5,100. And then what we're doing after that is meeting your needs. So the total cost minus how much your family is contributing is your need, and your need is being met by over $71,000 in scholarship, and the ability to earn up to $2,500 here on campus. And so the cost of tuition for the upcoming school year is under $60,000 for the full year. So in this case, you'd have, almost $12,000 in scholarship that's going towards room and board as well. And so I would encourage you to use the calculator to plug in, play around with it, see how income changes may affect your family circumstances. But this is, and like I had mentioned, this is intended to give a range and to give an idea of what you can expect. If you wish to use some more information, pull out your tax return. We have the net price calculator as well. And the net price calculator is going to be asking for much more specific numbers. It'll give you much more guidance. That one will probably take maybe 10, 15 minutes to complete. And then that one will give you a more directed response.
Great, thank you, Brooke.
Sure.
I'll go ahead and share my screen again. Let's see if we can do this seamlessly here. So that is the end of our official part of the presentation, but we definitely want to ask Manuel some questions here from your perspective as a student who has aid, who has friends that have aid. How has Dartmouth Financial Aid kind of been impactful on your time as a student, both inside and outside the classroom? So we'll start with that really big question and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, no, I think myself and a lot of my really good friends are also low income. And I think just across the board, Dartmouth is very, very generous with their financial aid. Like I said, I think before actually coming to college, I thought like loans were going to be a thing. I thought, financial aid, I thought it's a thing that everybody talked about, but I didn't think it was going to be sort of so shocking. I am low income, so I pay little. I have quite a majority of everything paid for by financial aid. I get the Pell Grant, and a lot of my good friends have also received the Pell Grant and received financial aid, and it's just, I mean, it's amazing, to be able to get this world-class education at like an amazing price. And and I didn't really know that, there are schools who have better financial aid than others, and schools who are, committed to helping low-income students more than others. And I mean, I didn't know that was the thing. I didn't really know how to look. I think I just got lucky with Dartmouth, and they just, financial aid has been amazing to me. They're all very, very responsive, very nice people too, willing to talk over stuff. I've had friends who before coming here, there's this thing where you can, if there's like another school that maybe has a better financial aid package, but you want to attend Dartmouth and Dartmouth's maybe asking you to pay a little more, you can ask Dartmouth to match what the other school is giving you. And usually, you have to do a little bit of talking it through, sort of really showing everyone that you're very committed to go to Dartmouth. And I've had a couple of friends who have been able to, I mean, I'm not talking about like they give you $20,000 more every year, more sort of like, if it's like between a couple grand, and Brooke, you can also speak to this a bit more, there's no like hard cutoff.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm going to interject here because that is a really important piece. If you are admitted to another Ivy League and you receive a lower net cost, Dartmouth will match the net cost of another Ivy League. And so that would be looking at regular decision when you are, because for Questbridge, you're being matched. And then for early decision, it's a binding agreement. So we expect that you're not being admitted to other schools at the same time, because if you get admitted to Dartmouth, then you're going to Dartmouth. But with regular decision, if you are admitted to other Ivy League colleges, absolutely. We want to take the finances out of making your decision. And the Ivy League, we're all need-based institutions. So we do have the ability to treat things a little bit differently. So you may find that the awards do vary a little bit, but we want to just get rid of that. So if they have a better net cost, send us the letter and we'll match the net cost of another Ivy League college. Absolutely.
Yeah, sweet. Thank you so much, Brooke. And Kate?
Yeah, and Manuel, there's a question in the Q&A that I think would be a great one for you to answer. Have you ever felt out of place being a low-income student at Dartmouth?
I mean, yeah, for sure. You know, like, although Dartmouth is covering most of my costs to go to school and so that I can actually be at Dartmouth, you know, there are folks who come from families that just have a lot of money, and because of that, like, have had very different upbringings rather. And so you'll hear people talking about like the you know, visiting 20 different countries, and like when they did this at this place, and they're going to their like private home in this place, and you know, that's sort of like more explicit sort of ways in which I feel excluded, but also just like small sort of having gone to a boarding school, having been educated in a different manner, it's like you pick that up at times. And so yeah, I would be lying if I said I didn't feel you know, out of place at times. But I think then, you know, I make an effort to sort of surround myself with people who understand sort of my past, and who are, and if they don't, at least are sort of committed to understanding, and to just being kind, and you know, sort of open to different experiences. And so you know, a lot of my good friends are low income, and we've been sort of able to bond through that, and also to sort of like expand our net a bit wider because of that sort of comfort that we've had. But yeah, I mean, you know, Dartmouth is a big institution, and folks from all around the world will apply, and people have money, you know, like that's sort of the way it is. And that just inherently will mean that people just come from vastly different upbringings, but nevertheless, you know, we're all there to learn, and we're all there sort of with a love for Dartmouth and a love for pursuing education. So, you know, you do the best you can, and you try to sort of like be very introspective, and stick to who you are, and try and surround yourself with people who will sort of empower you to be more of you, basically. Yeah.
And I know we were over time a little bit, but I want to ask one more question of Manuel, kind of round us out here. Do you have any advice for the students on the call? So most of the students on the call are rising seniors, or maybe just started their senior year. What advice would you have for folks as they start navigating this process?
Yeah, like I think if you have any questions about financial aid, like, and this isn't like cliche, like Dartmouth financial aid people are very, very friendly and very willing to talk to you. Like I remember, this wasn't me, but I know there's a 24. He just finished his freshman year. He was just talking about like early in his senior year, he just like had a question. And I think he applied early decision to Dartmouth, but he had some questions on finances because he didn't know if he wanted to, you know, he didn't want to, you know, apply and be binding to a school if maybe aid wasn't going to be good. So he just like called somebody from the financial aid office, and they like sat down with him and like talked down their finances, and just like, this is what we think, you know, they can't guarantee everything, you know, right now, but it's like, here's what we think you're going to pay. And that sort of gave him a lot of reassurance when he was applying. And, you know, I don't think college seniors think that they can email the financial aid department of a very big institution and be like, hey, can you take out 20 minutes to talk about me, like me as an individual? And I think financial aid office is busy, but, you know, they're more than happy to take a little bit of time out. Look, financial aid at dartmouth.edu, like message, you know, send an email there and be like, hey, I know there are folks who have like have a bit more specific, you know, situations with income, or situations with like familial stuff. I think they would be more than welcome to sort of help you navigate through that a bit more, so you at least are a bit more comfortable with everything.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Absolutely. Call us, email us. We're here and we're happy to help. And like I mentioned before, we want to make sure that you're coming into this with any level of comfort that you can. I understand that it's a cumbersome process and there's a lot of new information coming at you. We ask for a lot. We are there to help. We are there to help. We are happy to talk to prospective parents and students to help navigate, for sure.
Well, thank you, Brooke, and thank you, Manuel, for your expertise tonight. And if you call us or email us, a friendly face like Brooke will be on the other end of the line, so you can be assured that you're going to get your questions answered and that we're going to really treat you individually and really make sure that you understand this process.